Let's rock and roll. Jen, you ready to read your little preamble? Appropriate, you have your cat sitting with you.
Yes, Orion is here. He might make some objections in a moment.
I see that.
What did Orion think of the movie?
He loved it. He got extra snuggles during the movie.
Okay.
So do we want to do our intro first?
Yeah, I'll do the intro and then we'll cut you loose. Welcome to the SciFi Diner Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Herzog.
Good evening. I'm Miles P. McLaughlin.
And I'm Christy Raffensperger.
And I'm Dave Sellers.
And joining us tonight, at least for a little bit, is special guest, my son, Kiefer. Welcome to the show. And also joining us tonight is Orion, who is a critic of this movie that we are talking about. So
Yes. You can't see because my camera's not working right, but Harley, my orange tabby cat, is joining us also.
Oh, sounds good.
The cats are here.
The cats
Yes,
are
they
in
did.
full force, and rightly so, because
Give me a second.
tonight we are talking about Flow, this animated feature that won some awards that we'll be talking about a little bit later on, critically acclaimed, and a bit of an unusual movie. And but before we go too far into it, Jen, why don't you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about this movie as we go into this, and especially for maybe some of you who didn't encounter this. So
Flow is an animated Latvian film. It tells the story of a solitary cat who, after a great flood, joins other animals on a boat to survive in a seemingly post-apocalyptic world, highlighting themes of survival, friendship, and adaptation. It's known for its unique visual style and no dialogue, focusing on the emotional storytelling through imagery and sound.
Jen, you're the one that first heard about this. I mean, I heard about this movie from you.
Yes.
And how did you first encounter this movie?
It actually showed up on just like my news feed the one day as I was like just checking the news, seeing what was going on in the world. And I guess the algorithm must have realized that I like cats. I don't know where it got that from. I only took a million cat videos and pictures on Instagram. So the internet algorithm gods showed me this film, and then I, watched it, and it was really good. And then when we were talking about different films here, I thought, you know what? It's a post-apocalyptic, futuristic film, even though it's not the typical sci-fi. I still felt that it fit our podcast, so that's why I brought it up as a potential to see, because it was just a very unique film. I thought it had a lot of compelling imagery and a lot of interesting interpretations. So because it doesn't have dialogue, it's so reliant on interpretation, and you can take it all sorts of ways. So it just seemed like a really good film and something that you could watch again and again and get something different out every time.
Very good, very good. Well, I got to admit, when you said Latvia, I had to go and look up where exactly Latvia was, because it's kind of nestled in there between Finland and Belarus, just north of Poland a little bit. And all the countries like to the west of Poland I'm good with. When you get to the splitting of the USSR and some of the countries that came out of that, I don't quite know all of them. So, but Latvia, this tiny little country that made a big splash in animation, that's for sure. Well,
And I believe the
go ahead.
animator is self-taught.
Yes. So it's interesting. And I think what's interesting is, I think it was mentioned, I think you mentioned it, but made entirely with Blender, which is a free software. Now, this is not his first foray into film, but it's his first one that he did such a large project, I think is what it was, that made it so unique. So, all right. Well, let's dive into this a little bit. Let's kind of do first impressions, having watched it. And I think I'm going to ask Kiefer here to unmute himself and talk a little bit about what his first impression. He is an absolute, you need to know this about Kiefer. He's an absolute animal lover, has a cat that he loves and adores. And so this kind of fits right into his wheelhouse. So Kiefer, you heard about this movie from me, and I kind of said, hey, let's sit down and watch it. And you kind of, so what did you think of this?
All right. So my first impressions of the movie, let me think. Well, I was a little weirded out at first. It was like, I went into this movie completely blind, no clue what was going on. Um, and the first thing that happens was I'm fascinated by it. Honestly, I'm really captured by that one scene near the beginning of the movie where um there's like a big cat statue for no reason. I thought that was really interesting, and I was really curious about that, and it didn't really get answered ever. Um, I, I I'm just thinking about it right now. I think there's a lot of things you can pull from this movie. It's very you have to watch it with the right mindset, if it makes sense.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you, Kiefer, for your sharing your thoughts there on just initial reactions to it. Miles, how about you? Tell me a little bit about what you thought about this movie.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I mean, so I have a cat. I love cats. I love animals too. Um, but the idea that there was no human dialogue. It was just following these animals on this adventure and quest for survival. Um, I was, pleasantly surprised how quickly I got sucked in. I mean, I it didn't take me long to care about the cat, and whenever I heard it make it little meows and something like that, I felt for it. So emotionally, I connected to it pretty quickly. You know, I was concerned about this cat's well-being and these other animals' well-being, and it's like, okay, well, what are they going to do for food and stuff? And they answer those questions in the movie, um, but it was interesting. There's no humans at all. You see human creations, as far as, like, as Kiefer said, this wooden statue of the cat, and there's other animals there too. Um, but I thought it was interesting. It looked like it was happening in South America, because it looked like these were South American ruins that we were seeing, and South American animals that you wouldn't see here either. Um, yeah, I was not sure what to expect, but I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, um, the writers and the way this was produced, it sucked me in pretty quick, and I was able to connect with our four-legged friend characters and be concerned for their well-being. They did a good job of making me care.
Very good, very good. Kiefer, you wanted to say something here. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I just wanted to say that, like, there are actually a lot of the characters, like, during the movie I was actually thinking about that too, where, like, there's a lot of this feels like it's in South America. If this wait, yeah, South America. Okay. And after looking it up a little bit, I realized that almost like a lot of those characters are from very, very different parts of the world, almost like they've all been driven to this one place.
It's just definitely a little bit interesting regarding that, like how the animals all met up. It's because of the structure of it.
I also think that it's interesting the way they characterize each of the animals in their own individual ways. Also, like the fact that there's a capybara.
Yeah, so I think that there's definitely there. I think that, as Miles and Kiefer pointed out, there's this ability that non-verbally, I think there's this natural inclination to care about, like, dogs and cats, and then and there's a cuteness to the marsupial and the capybara, right? That's all there. And there's a cuteness factor, certainly, but I don't know that alone was enough to kind of keep me engaged. So I think that there was definitely their plot. Chrissy, your thought, having watched this film, what were some of your thoughts in watching this? Obviously, you recommended it because you liked it, but we'd like to hear from you.
Well, I went into it knowing a little bit about it, so I paid a lot of attention to the visuals right off the bat. Like, you see right off the bat, you kind of get like a foreshadowing. I mean, obviously it's called flow, you know that much, that this is going to have something to do with water. But even if you were going in blind, there is some foreshadowing that there's going to be a flood, because early on you see a rowboat that's just up in a tree, and you're like, what's a rowboat doing up in the tree? So this is obviously not the first time that there's been a flood, and it seems like it floods probably fairly frequently. Um, and what really just drew me in was that each animal seemed like they were representing like a different challenge that they had to overcome in order to survive. And so like looking at the imagery surrounding each animal when it gets introduced can tell you a lot about what's going to happen with the animal in order, like here's its challenge, here's what's going on with it, and here's what it needs to overcome. And each animal throughout the film as they get introduced and then as it gets forward, you see each one of them kind of conquering those different struggles that they have to come together as a cohesive group at the end. And I don't want to get like too into all the imagery because if someone hasn't like watched it yet, I don't want to like overly skew their interpretations.
I like what you kind of said there. I was watching an interview with the director, and he said one of the things that was so challenging for him, this film was kind of, it felt like to him a representation of just himself, maybe in the cat per se. He was used up to this film to working very independently as an animator, just by himself. He created a film called Away that if you haven't seen it, you can check that out. That is like an animated short. So he was very used to working by himself, but having to work with it, they had to create a studio, build a team for it, pitches to studios, and just that whole process forced him like out of his shell to work with people that he wouldn't have typically worked with. And he compared that to the cat working with the capybara, working with the dog, what was the bird called? I forget what kind of bird it was, but I was going to say pelican, but it's not a pelican.
No, it's what's that bird called? I don't remember.
Very exotic, whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that he said that the cat was a reflection of him because I noticed, like, I interpreted all those like little cat statues around as almost like a self-centric project. Is obviously the cat didn't do that, but the human that was working with or was taking care of the cat at some point had it being very almost contained not that the cat was selfish, but it was self-centered in that I have my own little world. I don't need to go beyond it. But then obviously the water starts rising, and he doesn't have a choice. He has to, in order to survive, leave his little world that's centered around him to become part of this larger group and be successful.
Yeah.
By the way, the bird, it's called a secretary bird.
That's right, secretary bird.
I almost call it a messenger bird. I'm like, no, that's not a messenger.
No, you'd have been close. You'd have been close. Dave, so you obviously encountered this film just because Jen suggested it. What was this is? I don't think when I think of Dave, I don't think like this is necessarily your go-to film, but watching it,
Yes.
what resonated with you? What would you think?
I'm glad the four of you love this movie. I am also glad that Latvia makes very good hockey players. It could not hold my attention. My immediate thought was, if I want to watch animals running through the wilderness trying to get away or get somewhere, I'll watch Homeward Bound.
Fair.
This was Timu Homeward Bound for me.
Wow. Wow.
While I can certainly can certainly appreciate the style in which this was done, and could for the parts that I could actually focus and pay attention to it, the way this movie was made and the stuff that you guys have been talking about, I completely get all that. But yeah, you're right. I would never have even given this a passing glance without having it as a homework assignment. And I really think Chrissy's getting back at me for Battle Beyond the Stars a year ago. So.
Yes. Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me, Dave, that you kind of feel this way, as it's not something that resonates. And I think there's definitely a sense that this plays out very much as an artistic film and almost like an extended exercise. Well, can we tell a story? Much like Wall-E was in the first 45 minutes, where you tell an entire story without any dialogue. Here you do it with animals, right? And there is a
Wall-E.
sense what I liked about this, what I did like about it, is it didn't give you all the answers. And there's a part of me that likes it. Like, I kind of want to know what happened with humanity. Why is it flooding? I mean, you might say global warming or whatever, but I feel like I want to know more. I want to. There's these ruins. There's these, and we don't know how long they've been gone.
Well, they couldn't have been gone all that long, because you have like, and the carvings at the start are like stopped in the middle. It's almost like they all just got abducted. I don't know if the Vulcans came.
I didn't even notice that.
Maybe they did, maybe they were.
I mean, because like I think there's a carving like on the table that's part way done, and there's a lot of like evidence that kind of suggests that it, whatever, was kind of a rough job. So
on the big cat statue, there was scaffolding. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, if it, and you see, I mentioned at the start, the rowboat was up in the tree, so it kind of indicates a frequent flooding. So then it's like, was this a cat that was left behind? But if so, that doesn't make sense, because this person clearly liked cats. I mean, I like cats, but I'm not out in my backyard carving giant wooden statues to them.
Why not?
Can I be? Actually, that's a good point.
You know you're going through. It's going to be a summer project. You know it.
I'm allergic to bees, and I don't like spending a lot of time outside in the summertime. Like, I have my garden, and I have a limited window of time to garden in the morning before the bees come out, and I get stung, and I have to go to the hospital. So
just get a piece inside and whittle away.
Okay, I'm taking up whittling now.
I'm going to be honest with you. Out of all of the characters in this movie, the cat's the least interesting one.
It's just a racist, bigoted, stuck-up cat in the beginning. I mean, look at the dog.
Okay. No. Here's why at least interesting, because every other animal is so much more interesting and has so much more personality. The cat is like your average protagonist in like any kind of like, what's it called? Self-insert, like anime or something like that, where like it's just some moron who just got to high school or something like that. Because every other character is so much more interesting. Like, you have randomly in the middle of the movie what do you even call it? Like a ritual happening with a flamingo or whatever that was about. I don't remember what it was exactly. A lemur that just steals stuff was awesome.
The cat wanted nothing to do with anything until it happened upon that boat with the fat, lazy gopher that's just lying there what's up?
I like this rendition of the movie where Dave makes all the voices for the characters. I want to see that version.
I do. I want to hear a version of this movie where Dave provides the voices for each one of the animals. Like, that would be a good version. And Dave, I would totally watch it.
Well,
for the SciFi Diner Podcast, Dave says everything.
We can do like a Mystery Science Theater, but Dave just speaks everything.
Dumb stuck-up bird just getting annoyed with the dog, just wanting to play with his ball, and he just kicks it off the boat like a jackass. I mean,
typical
come on,
cat.
bird.
Typical cat.
Yeah. Stupid bird.
So I do have a question. The large aquatic creature we saw swimming around.
Yeah.
What was that? Is that wasn't a whale?
Nessie. Nessie made its way down to South America.
It almost felt more serpentine.
Prehistoric. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what got rid of like the Mayans and stuff, was a giant flood. The flood of Noah wiped out the Mayans, left that single massive sea demon left to rot in the middle of the woods. And hopefully all those animals feasted on its remains for a while because it's all they had left to eat. Maybe that could answer. Maybe that's what he's going for.
The lassophobia of the movie.
You know,
You ain't buying that, all right.
problem with the multiple flood theory is that if you've ever been like in like strong water like that, the scaffolding around the cat would not have survived, right? The scaffolding is strong, but it's not that strong that it's going to withstand the rushing waters of a flood.
You
And
gotta
and
suspend some
and
disbelief there.
then like the waters like rise pretty high, but if they rise to the room that the cat was in upstairs, then that room would have been flooded before, and that looked like a pretty like non-water damaged room.
It did.
So
but
like
explain the rowboat in the tree.
So like I don't know, like there's other ways that boats can get into trees, like we're at a tornado, strong hurricane blowing through. I mean, there's other things that could, make the boat in the tree.
So strong weather events.
Yeah.
I mean, we also don't know how
Potentially.
long that rowboat was up in the tree.
Yeah,
I mean, it could have been 10 years.
or art installation. Maybe the boat was on the ground, the tree grew up, and they lifted the boat up with it.
Maybe.
You had a gopher and a bird steering a boat. I mean,
I'm
a
not.
little bit of suspension of disbelief here.
He's just gonna keep calling it a gopher to tick you off. You do realize
No,
that,
I
right?
know.
Right.
It's his whole purpose in life. is to take
It's
you off,
actually it's actually a baby camel.
kill you.
The sounds that it makes are
gopher.
actually the sounds of a baby camel. Just so you know,
Are they
is it?
actually?
they are.
Oh,
So
that's
they
fair.
tried to
Just
use
silence.
real capybara sounds, but they didn't match the personality that the capybara character would have. So they used a baby camel instead.
But
Makes-
baby camels do fit the lazy overtone more.
I'll go with that.
Dave, your review has been very interesting. I would like to continue hearing what you thought, especially with the scene with whatever the heck was up with the Mayans in the random ascension event that happened, which I'm still confused about.
Yeah, so how did, again, this may have been a part where I faded out. So what happened? How did the cat get from the boat through like some looked like time warpy thing on the shore at the pointy little swizzle stick mountain?
And then the ascension of the secretary bird.
Is that what it was?
Like
Oh my gosh!
I missed
Like
that.
I would have
like
get a bird.
like almost like a bird Jesus getting like
Is that what happened?
ascending to heaven. I don't
Yes.
know.
It wasn't a little accurate though. He didn't get crucified.
There definitely are some like more mystical elements to the film.
Correct.
Because you do have like the cat having that dream where it's like up on a pole being like surrounded by deer, and then like the whale creature definitely seems like it has more of a mystical or mythical element to it in terms of its symbolism. And then you finally get to the point where the cat goes overboard with the bird and then like almost gets washed up to a stair where it ascends up. And so you definitely get a sense that this is meant to represent some sort of spiritual journey that the animals all go through.
There's a lot.
So-
There's a sense too that if you want to take it a little bit, if you want to take it a little bit further, you have a little bit of when the cat's thrown overboard. There's a sense of baptism that happens. Now water's all around throughout, so I don't know how well that metaphor works, but
Yeah, because he's been baptized at least 2 other times before. So I guess the first
well, you know, the
time-
first time you accept Jesus, it doesn't take.
It's gonna-
Yeah, hold you down till you really repent.
That's right. That's right. When one dunking's not enough, we got to do multiple. There's so much sin in this cat. One for each of its lives. Once for each of its
I was
lives.
just gonna say maybe the cat only had 3 lives left, and so it needed multiple
Need- Yep. Yep.
for the life.
That thing should have been dead like 8 minutes ago. You know?
Yeah. I got a bone to
very
pick with you,
resilient
Dave,
cat.
though. Dave,
Please.
you complained about the cat like maliciously kicking the ball out of the way.
No, the cat didn't. The bird did.
Well, okay.
The bird kicked the ball out into the water.
The bird
Okay.
was a little bit of a dick at times.
Yeah.
I call the cat a
Oh,
racist.
absolutely.
The
I thought you were
cat
calling the
was
cat a little bit
was just
racist, but
a dick, okay?
What was the dog then?
well, the
Just a
dog was
dog.
like running in
Just a
in like a
dumbass.
ganging up on the cat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
So we got racist, Dick.
A racist, a
can't
jerk,
remember.
a lazy gopher,
What's the? I think
and a
it's the
moron
lemur.
dog. Huh?
What's the little lemur thing?
The lemur thing? Oh, he's a little thief. You see all the junk he was collecting up? And then
Who's
the way
a
he was
moron?
protecting it from them
That's
dogs?
accurate.
Mine.
Big raccoon
dog.
son.
Flex his little tail up. Yeah. What are you going to do with your little trinkets? You ain't going to do nothing with that. Just like
Well-
to keep it because it's shiny.
Well, how many times do you see people in these life or death situations like trying to hold on to their things instead of
Yes.
getting themselves to safety?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and putting things before others.
I think we need to all go around and name an archetype that we fit into in this movie.
Well, and it really does seem like they keep being offered different choices, and then they have to make the choice in order to survive, in order for the group to be successful. So the cat has to overcome its fear of the water itself to jump in to get fish to bring it back up to the other animals, because otherwise they're probably going to die. I mean, Capybara was like pulling some banana things down, eating that and be fine, but we all know the cat can't eat that.
Right.
And the only choice it has is to jump in the water, get the fish, jump out. And there are times when, you see the cat get offered fish by the bird, but then that gets stolen. So the cat can't just rely on other people to do for them. He has to, or she has to, get in the water, risk himself to not only help himself, but others. And then later on, you see that get reinforced again, where the bird wants to kind of like say, screw you to the dog gang. And all the animals say, no, we're going to pick up these people, even if when they get in, they kind of cause a lot of trouble.
Right. Well, and in the end, they rescue us the capybara off the boat before it crashes, and they have that whole rescue scene. They all kind of play into that. They continue to have to make these decisions at the end.
Yeah. So
What was up with the beached whale? It felt kind of like the beached whale came out of nowhere for me. Also, the flood suddenly stopping came out of nowhere for me. Both those things I was really curious about and very confused about. Because the beached whale felt like it had a...
So, what are your guys' thoughts about
It's
the
time warp,
whale?
Chrissy.
Yeah,
I'm
kind
like-
of beached on the in the middle of the woods.
Well, I mean, if once deep floodwaters like that rescind, you got something big like that. You ain't exactly going out with the tide, so to speak.
Right.
It's kind of
It's a casualty of the flood.
Right. And maybe in a way a bit indiscriminate. It's like not like they was like saving, like the animals that were on the boat were able to help each other, right? The whale had no other means to really, there was no one to help the whale, despite of how big and mammoth it was.
well, if you think of the whale as like some sort of mythical spiritual creature, you see it at the start coming in and helping the cat from not drowning. So without the whale at the start pushing it up to the surface, the cat would have drowned. So it's almost like this creature becomes some sort of, I don't know, Deus Ex Machina, like hand of God thing. But then once each animal has reached, we're just going to say spiritual ascension of some kind, then that it no longer is necessary, and that part can be ended. Almost that part can die because it's no longer necessary.
So you see it like as the whale is almost like a messianic figure in a way.
Not quite like a messianic figure, but more of maybe more like a prophet-like figure. Like, I'm coming, I'm leading you to a promised land kind of a thing, and then I'm done, and I will go into the next realm. Perhaps one could interpret it that way. As like, the whale is no longer necessary to literally float up the animals and keep them alive or help them through their spiritual journey. This is why I love this movie, is because like you can watch it like 5 times and get like 5 different stories out of it, and you would be right every time. And I think there's something beautiful in being able to go back and like watch a story and like get different things out of it each time, and like reflect back on it for like your own self and be like, okay, who do I identify, like which animal do I identify with this time, or like what do I see, what's in the background that I missed, what other hints might there be to uncover. I think if you're not that kind of a person who enjoys doing that, you're not going to like this film if you don't enjoy going to art museums and staring at the paintings and trying to figure out, like, discern what the artist was trying to convey, what story it might be telling. You're not going to like this film.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Dave is not going with me to any art museums at any time or
This
art
doesn't.
gallery openings.
I would say that I'm
Unless he loses
surprised,
bet.
but I'm not.
Listen, I'm not going to sit down with him and watch a sports thing.
Because I'm not going to sit down and watch a sports thing either. So the art stuff like that, I don't have much of a problem with when it's modern art. Modern art, I find no joy or really relevance to. Much like modern architecture, it's all soulless to me in many ways. Where everything it's like how society has changed out to where everything is up to an interpretation, and how whatever your truth is, whatever you feel like it is, and it's devoid of a true message and a true meaning. Things are much more institutionalized, especially in the architecture side of those things. I mean, I look at the building I currently work at. Oh, it's such a big, beautiful building. It lacks every bit of character to it. It
lacks
looks like a prison.
personality, Dave.
Yes, lacks personality. Even the old hodgepodge thing that part was built in the 50s, part in the 60s, part in 1997, that had some character to it. It had just something different to it.
What a vibe.
Yeah. You know, you go through like a city like New York, right? I've never been there, but I've seen enough pictures of the old buildings there. Just beautiful. The handcrafted stonework, all of the just great talent and architecture to it. And you go some of those modern just metal and glass twisty monstrosities. It's devoid of anything.
Right.
Thank you, Brutalism Movement.
Yeah, you know what, and certainly you would argue that some of these buildings you're talking about are architectural marvels, but they don't.
Absolutely.
But they don't evoke a sense of feeling or personality, like you said. And I think that one of the things that's because of the lack of clarity in a story. Obviously, the cat's trying to survive, and you like are rooting for the cat from that element. But because it is kind of just, it's called flow for a reason. The cat and all its companions are just going wherever the boat takes it. Yeah, they can steer it, but ultimately it's going somewhere. It's not like they're saying, "Oh, let's go to New York." They're just heading to wherever the boat ends up so they can survive and find some land. So.
Yeah. And I don't think that like it's totally devoid of any meaning, because I definitely felt that the story showed a reflection of like some sort of transformation for the animals.
Correct.
Whether that's character development, whether that's a spiritual level, like I think that's where you can really get into what precisely did each one have to overcome? What precisely does it mean to have overcome those things? But I can also understand like modern. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of like what was considered like modern art. There are definitely modern artists that I love, but they're not. I wouldn't say that they're part of that particular movement of art in like that we know of modern art.
And what I think
They-
maybe, and perhaps the power in this movie does lie in the fact that it's bringing up conversations. You know what has happened to humanity, right? As part of the conversation. You know
Yeah.
what is the purpose, the meaning behind the ascension of the Secretariat bird. What is the whale, and you begin to like analyze symbolic meaning into it, and perhaps that, and obviously the beautiful animation style that was done in, and the landscape and the world it creates. There's something in that, right? But it's certainly not as solid as some of our other movies that also have a sense of meaning or and illustrate a point. You know?
and for me, it's I've never liked a lot of interpretation, especially in film, in literature, in art. Even one of the great things I find that keeps humanity moving along is our stories. And when we tell these stories and we make these things that depict these stories, there are ways that we keep our humanity and our history alive from generation to generation. Like one of my favorite paintings is the painting of George Washington in the wilderness, standing next to his horse, kneeling and praying. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. The story behind that painting is absolutely amazing. The artwork itself is great, but what that picture was painted, the story it told from the guy who witnessed this scene and made and painted, ended up painting this picture, is an astounding piece of American history. Those are the kinds of things that I like at it. When I got to sit and debate and determine and think, well, maybe this could be something in this, it loses me almost immediately.
Hmm.
Almost immediately, because it just doesn't resonate with the way I view the world, but with the way my brain works. And I mean, that's not taking anything away from the film itself. It's great for what they were doing. Just
I think maybe for modern audiences too. I know that this is obviously a very modern film, but I think about like how many of the students that I teach would watch this film. Some certainly will. I mean, Kiefer's of that age, and he certainly did. But there's a sense that the movie's pacing is very. While there's some moments of excitement, it does move somewhat slow.
It kind of is very like almost Miyazaki
Right.
in that way. Like if you like Miyazaki films, I think you would like this film, and not just because of animation, but because it has a similar pacing to it, and also because just like Miyazaki has a lot of scenes and a lot of things that can be open to interpretation, the movie can. So what we just learned is that we're not reviewing any Miyazaki films with Dave. He would probably kill us.
Probably.
Because they're slow paced and a lot of them are open to interpretation.
oof.
So
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
sad day for us.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Let's see, I don't think he did any sci-fi. I can't think of any sci-fi that he did. off
No.
the top of
No.
my
But
head.
there's some mystical certainly.
Yeah, and this one was kind of like on the edge of being almost like a mystical sci-fi film because it's post-apocalyptic, so it's like in the future, but also it's dealing with very like modern things. But then Star Wars itself is kind of very mystical. I mean, come on, they're like basically space wizards.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
So, just so
I'm
you
okay
know,
with
this, and we didn't talk about this, but this film cost about $4 million to make, and worldwide has made 17 million. So they certainly have made their money back. So not a high budget piece in regards to animation, but certainly made its money back in it. So
So how does a film that you're making on a freebie software platform cost $4 million to make?
well, so
I'm-
you need the hardware, right? You
Right.
need hardware that can handle it. You need to pay your workers. So you
Those
do have
pesky workers.
you
I
do
thought
a,
this guy did it by himself.
no. He
was
this prior
self-taught.
he was self-taught. He did this prior movie by himself. He
Oh, okay.
mentioned this
He had a
earlier.
team
He
with this
developed a team for this one. I assume that the music that was in this, had to have at least some,
Money to promote the film.
I was
yeah.
gonna say marketing is probably the
More
biggest
price
thing
Yeah.
for that.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Okay.
but 4 million is still not when you talk about films. That's
Oh,
like
that's nothing.
that's chump change,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I mean, it's an impressive film in its own right. I did look up, and there are just a few continuity errors. Do you want to hear about them?
Yes.
I would love to.
So apparently, at 1 hour and 3 minutes, the bird flies to the island. When the cat wakes up, there are no dogs inside the boat. Later, the new dogs are in the boat again. So this must be after the new dogs have been picked up.
Oh.
Yeah. And the other one, there's a guy that there were two other comments. One of them I totally disagree with, but the one I kind of agree with, in reality, the large crane-like birds and egrets do not feed by swooping down and grabbing fish or cats in their claws the way an eagle or osprey would. These long-legged birds are waders who stalk their prey in shallow waters and seize them from their beaks.
It was
Well,
just driving the boat 2 minutes ago.
I know, exactly. So the one that I disagree with they have here is
it's evolved, Secretary Bird. In the world of flow, with all of the extra ocean, they can't wait anymore. They had to adapt to
they
keep.
did. Okay, I'm buying it. This one, a scene shows a cat giving the dog a whole fish to eat. Dogs should never eat fish with bones in it, as it will easily choke. Maybe they shouldn't, but I can tell you my dog will eat anything that falls to the ground.
Says someone who clearly doesn't have a dog.
Fair enough. Fair
Like,
enough.
My dog shouldn't eat chocolate, but
Yeah, no,
I-
there was that.
we had a dog eat a lot of chocolate, but on Easter the one day, she got a little sick.
Yeah.
I need sticks and leaves and paper.
So I have most of the reviews when you go down through are just like hailing this as being a fantastic art piece, inspirational and so on. But there are a few negative reviews. So I thought maybe we could share some of them since we were all somewhat positive about it.
Please, Scott, preach me the words of my people.
Yes.
I
So
love it.
the
Yeah,
title of this
that's
one,
fine.
the title of this one is Nice Tech Demo.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blender is a great program. You should
It
use
said
it.
created an open source 3D computer graphics tool blended. The animation is beautiful and the half sunken world intriguing, but Flow is a good reminder that wonderful art without a compelling story does not a movie make. So instead, what we get is a bunch of vignettes: finding friends, finding food, finding a way forward. And each could have just as easily been tasks in a video game. So,
I'll buy it.
all right. Here's another one. This was a 3 out of 10 stars.
That's a
Almost,
little harsh.
almost meaningful, but just random. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a movie about animals and the cartoon. So it's not supposed to be realistic. I get that, but the movie goes out of its way to make it realistic. But dogs catching fish when a cat cannot, a boat that moves away then comes back to the cat. At first, I thought the whole world was like a river that flows nonstop, and the whole white birds were like gods overseeing each animal in its place. But that gets thrown out the water later on. It's almost like a deep meaning that throws it away 5 minutes later. Then the movie keeps going it again and again and again. All right. There's some other ones here. A 1 out of 10 stars.
Let's hear it.
This is
Harsh.
salty.
I want to hear this one.
Let me stop this thing from rattling. Poor sound
So salty.
design.
I want all the salt.
Yes, poor sound design and a pointless story. While Flow has been lauded for its unique animation style and philosophical depth, I found the experience marred by its sound design. The film's reliance on authentic animal noises, particularly the unsettling sounds attributed to the capybara character, voiced by a baby camel due to the natural capybara sounds being too high-pitched, and infrequently created an uncomfortable auditory experience. But he was not a fan, obviously.
Well, that was one thing that didn't bother me.
Yeah, I would not say the sound was one.
Well, some people have sensory processing issues, so I mean, I'll,
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right.
I understand Anakin when he says he doesn't like sand. I don't really like sand either.
Yep.
Like, to be perfectly honest, apparently when I was a toddler, I used to scream when it touched me. So.
There you go.
I do that at 42.
We'll do.
I understand. Like, I don't like sand either. And I don't make it my whole personality, but.
All right, so let's do. I'll do two more, and then we'll kind of do some wrap up thoughts here. This is another one that's a 2 out of 10. Overrated product for a mass audience is the title of it. Pros were cute graphics, the soundtrack, but that's where the pros ended. Cons, a story. She hated the story of it. The fact that the animals exhibited a degree of intelligence that depicted solely on the wave of the scriptwriter's wand. He said he refused to comment on the last 10 minutes. Terrible climax, nothing more. What's the useful thing the lemur did for the plot? And then he says, go to hell. I prefer written characters. I don't care what they look like. Although, of course, you can just write that in the ending. They all pulled the rope together. There will not be but this guy absolutely hated the film. Absolutely hated it.
Well, for all of that, I will say though, it has 97% for the critics on Rotten Tomato, and then there's also an 8.5 out of 10. So like, it does seem that in general people.
Yeah, the majority of people are positive. But I did say I'd read two more, so I'm going to read one more, and then we can talk about wrapping it up. The title, this one's just trash. Yep. 1 out of 10. Was the writer asleep or high while coming up with this plot? Seriously, was this an actual attempt at storytelling? Or was it just random nonsense thrown together under the guise of being open-minded and artistic? Look, I get it. Movies can be abstract. They can challenge the audience, leave things open to interpretation, and not spoon-feed every detail. But at the very least, a movie needs to have a coherent plot. Otherwise, what's the point? If there's no logic or structure, then why are we even watching? Just a bunch of chaotic scenes that amount to nothing. That's not genius. That's just bad writing disguised as something profound. Take Bird Jesus, for example. He dies to save the cat. That's it. That's the whole point of the movie, if there is one. But why? What does that even mean in the grand scheme of things? Was there some deeper significance, or did the filmmakers just throw that in because they thought it would look cool and symbolic?
Thank you for reading my review, Scott.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I wonder how salty these reviewers are that it won a Golden Globe, an Academy Award, and an Oscar. I just want to know how salty they must be. I just know.
To be fair, like you said, Chrissy, this movie is, as a general rule, like I'm having to dig for these 1-2 star reviews. There's not many. And they're actually, most of them are written by Dave or like pseudonyms of Dave, logging into his different Gmail accounts as he answers this and pretends to be other people. So as long as we take that in a grain of thought, this movie is pretty fantastic.
Come on, we all know Moonlight is an internet troll.
Moonlight, there's no moonlighting about it. You're out in the open.
Right,
you're like out of the closet when it comes to being a troll about this movie. So
I mean, this is he just does it for the sheer pleasure of being a troll.
Absolutely.
So I have 3 monitors on my computer and my phone.
And one of them is always on 4chan because that is where trolls hang.
That's
right.
right. That's right. So let's kind of bring this back here. As we look at this movie, I asked. I'm going to ask two questions. So number one, what would you rate this personally out of? We'll do 10 stars since that's what we've been kind of talking about. But out of 10 stars, what would you rate it? And then B, the second question is, if this filmmaker came out with another project, another film, another animation, would you watch it? And if so, maybe what would the conditions be? All right. So, Miles, why don't you go ahead? We'll start with you first. What did you rate this, and would you watch another movie by this animator?
I would give this movie 7 stars. Um, because I think I could sit this. I could watch this movie with my girlfriend's granddaughters.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you could watch. This is a safe, family-friendly movie, and it's not for everybody. It's not for all adults, but I think I think it's good. It's a nice little kids movie, and I think it probably, as a kids movie, it teaches some good values. The animals helping each other out and being heroic, trying to save their lives and stuff. So that's why I give it. That's why I rate it as highly as I do.
All right.
And as far as would I see another movie that the guy put out, if he puts out another movie, maybe. This movie was not on my radar at all. Chrissy brought this on our radar when she said she saw it, and we decided we would review it. So, Chrissy, I'm glad you put it on my radar. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Dave, let's jump to you. I want to hear your rating, and I want to hear what would it take for you to watch another movie by this animator. Animation itself didn't necessarily seem to be the issue for you in this movie. So what would the movie need to have for you to say, you know what, I would watch it? So I guess first of all, rate this, and then we'll answer the second question.
Yeah. So I'd give it a 5. Not because I think it's trash, but I can appreciate it for what it is. I am cultured enough to be able to do that. But it is most definitely not my bag. So, I can at least be as fair as I can, at least give it credit for what it is. If you were to do something else, yeah, I want to see some dialogue, and I would want to see like most of these reviews have said, I would like to see a storyline, an actual plot, some dialogue, because half the time when I watch movies and stuff like that, my eyes are not fixed on that thing. There's something else I'm doing, working on. I can't just sit still and watch TV, or I will literally fall asleep within minutes. So at least with the dialogue, I can follow along audibly and kind of know what's going on. Yeah, that'd be my 2. But no, his talent for the animation and the score, I had no problem with the soundtrack, the animation, anything like that. Good God, I watched South Park like crazy. That's some of the worst animation ever done.
Right.
So yeah, this is nothing.
So you'll be glad to know that the next project he's working on will have dialogue in it. Number one.
Oh.
So will it have
working on another one?
Well, yeah. So will there be a story? That's a bigger question, right? There will be actors in the upcoming one, or at least voice actors in it, but we'll see. Chrissy, how about you? Tell me a little bit about where would you rate this movie, and would you watch another animated feature by this guy if it didn't have cats?
I mean, I would probably rate it as an 8 out of 10. Definitely up there as for me, it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it, and I felt like for what it was, it's a very solid, obviously more artistic film.
Did you say artistic or autistic?
Yeah, I had trouble.
Artistic? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it rates higher than for people who are on the spectrum. I don't know. I'd have to go survey a bunch of people who rate this film. Are you autistic?
Okay.
Although some people who are autistic don't know they're autistic. But anyways, moving on from that. So I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I could watch it again. And I liked it not just because it was a cat. Like I said, it kind of reminded me a lot of like Miyazaki films, and I love Miyazaki films. So, um, this is just the kind of film that I do tend to like. I would probably go back and watch some of the shorts that he's done um, before watching another thing by him, only because sometimes people, they're blind squirrels. They find the occasional nut. They're occasionally successful, but just because you had one big success doesn't necessarily mean that you have a track record of being able to do well.
Right.
J.J. Abrams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's some authors too that like I read like one book of theirs and it was phenomenal, and then I tried to read other books, even in the same series, and I'm just like, did you suffer a brain aneurysm? Like, did
Right.
someone hit you in the head with
Yeah.
a plank? Like, are you okay? So
I will
like,
say that one of the things that is appealing about this film, or at least got my interest, is it was gated. And I don't like ascribe to everything that comes out of Cannes and the film festivals, but it was getting significant hype as being like a high quality animated feature that that was grabbing the attentions of things like the Oscars and the Globes, and you were like, okay, well, this, I don't like every film that they do, but it means that there's arguably some critical merit to it. And I think there probably is, from the length of animation, certainly an accomplishment done with free software, that you don't need to be open source software, that you don't need to be shelling out millions and millions of dollars to a company just so you can run it. So there's certainly something to be said for all that, right?
yeah,
I myself, I think that, Chrissy, I like your rating of an 8 out of 10. I don't know that I would go any higher. Um, I appreciate some of the ambivalent um, creatures in there that appear, and you're wondering the significance of them. I think there's a sense of, I agree with the comment that the story is not as concise as I wish it would be, but there is a sense where the film's called Flow for a reason, and going with the flow doesn't imply that you necessarily have a very linear plot, right? And there's people that do that don't really, they got to go through life just rolling with life gives them. I'm not built that way, but there are people that do that, and so I think that it's very reflective in that way of it.
well, and I do wonder, just because of where Latvia is situated, is I know that the traditional Western plot is very different than the traditional Eastern plot. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like, it felt very Miyazaki to me, and it
Right.
feels very almost Eastern um, writing of like the anime, like all of that stuff that I've seen, even like the traditional like black and white films that I've watched that have come out of Japan. So so I'm wondering if there's some of that influence, because I also know
Right.
that like Russia and the USSR was very highly influenced out of like Constantinople, which is now
Turkey.
Istanbul. So like I just kind of wonder if like because of where it's situated in the world, if there's not like a different way of telling stories that is unique to that area.
Yeah, you
So
might
I'm
be
just
you might be right. Like, it reminds you a little bit of like the three body problem in the story, the way the story is told. It's a non-linear story, but so maybe part of the issue is, I'm reading, we read this, and obviously we can't read it any other way because it's our background, but to see it through Western eyes and say a story needs to be X, Y, and Z, and you don't necessarily mess with that. But in other cultures, it may experience storytelling a little bit different. And I get that, right? But I do think that, that being said, from the Western mindset, I personally would like to see a stronger story in it. And I think that if I were to watch another film by this guy, I would want to see a stronger story. Um, and I'm not as Dave. I'm not quite as, I don't care quite as much as the dialogue. Like, if there would have been a strong story without the dialogue, like, I think
Oh,
that would have sold me too, right?
yeah.
So, But I,
Yeah, and I think I would have moved it up to a 9 if the story had followed more of a
Yeah.
Western story that I am just more familiar with.
Dave, I want to pick a little bit apart about something you said, though. Part of the issue for us, unless we're going to an actual physical movie theater, which is a rare occasion for me these days, most of us are watching films in the comfort of a room, distracted by our kids, our dogs, our cats, our phones that are on our thing. And so to watch a film that has no dialogue to kind of continue to bring us back in is hard for us. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, with like the idea that we can't sit and just be present when we watch a film. I think that's a problem, and I'm guilty as the next person sometimes when we get into that.
And it depends. Well, see, it depends on the film. Like, there are certain ones that I can sit and devote my 100% attention to the entire thing, and then there's ones that I can't.
Right.
Like, I caught myself the other week watching Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan again, and just to think, I've watched it a billion times. I can quote the thing with my eyes closed just by the sound I hear on the screen. But my eyes were fixed on the TV. The phone sat away. There it was.
Yeah.
And there's a lot like that. I mean, if it's something that really grips me with it, I can sit and watch it. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Then my issue is if I get too comfortable, then I just literally just involuntarily fall asleep.
Fall asleep to that. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, thank you all for kind of sharing your thoughts about Flow. Chrissy, thank you for introducing it. And even though it wasn't everyone's favorite film, I think that's what makes this dialogue interesting, that we aren't all like, oh, this is the best movie since Betty White, So.
Well, and I do think it's good that like we come and we bring like different films to one another, ones that like Dave would never have freely sat down and watched this on his own. There's no flipping away.
Nope.
But
But I did.
I'll sit down and watch, the Santa Claus get kidnapped by Martians,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But and still appreciate like the expanding of horizons, which
Right.
I love doing, and that's the wonderful thing about science fiction, is that it is all about expanding horizons.
Yep.
And isn't that what Star Trek is all about? Finding new worlds.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So some of them aren't people's cups of tea.
Yep.
And that's okay. Some of them are vodka and whiskey.
And anything else it takes to get through things. But. All right. As speaking like a true therapist. All right.
Whatever it takes.
That was not therapy advice.
Scratch that for the record.
We used to not use.
It's good.
alcohol.
It's
a
good
thing
we're calling
still.
you Jen in this episode, right? Good. Yeah. Alter ego. All right. Well, I believe that takes us out to the end here. I know we talked about maybe watching Electric State. Did we want to do that for our next watch? That's Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown.
Sure, let's do it.
Sure.
It has not gotten positive reviews in the initial reviews, but hey, doesn't mean I won't like it. That I actually kind of like the trailer for it. So
The crappier
honestly,
the better.
yeah,
I honestly didn't watch the trailer. I just was like, sure. What you guys want to do? Did I not just say like it doesn't have to be over cups of tea? We expand our horizons and
so that
sometimes
is dropping on Netflix, I believe, this Friday. So
Yes.
I
and
don't know if
so
my brother is still paying for Netflix. I might have
Yeah.
to actually pay for it.
curses for a little bit, but
It's like what, $15?
I don't know, something like that.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just borrow someone else's.
Yeah. All right.
Oh no,
Well,
they probably have like a free trial. I could just do that.
You could do
That's
a free
true.
trial. Maybe you can get them to send you a DVD of it. Oh, they don't do that anymore. They don't do that anymore. So, but All right, guys, it's been fun chatting with you about this movie. And I believe with that being said, Miles, why don't you take us out of the show?
All right. Till next time, good night and good luck.
We'll see ya.
Leave your tips on the table.
And go boldly.
I thought you were going to say, Dave, and go